We don't know. He's got too much hair on his face. I sit down as stiff as a board. And in a second, though, Shmuley started talking to me. And I'll never forget his first questions about what I was studying and what I wanted to do. And at that point, I was just obsessed with a great writer named James Baldwin. I told him I wanted to write. I had done columns for my student newspaper at Stanford. And he asked me what my last column was about. And as I told him what my column was about, I realized some of my hypocrisy. Because I told him that I wrote about this idea of tolerance. That it's really just a sort of cynically repugnant state of mind that says, I'm just going to tolerate your right to be different, but if you disappear off the face of the earth, I'm no worse off or better. And I talked about in that column about the need to move beyond tolerance, to embrace each other, to love each other. And in that, you discover the gifts of God. His jaw dropped. He looked at me and he said, oh my gosh, I wrote the same column. And before you knew it, we were talking back and forth with a rapidity that only a politician and a rabbi could match. And we realized immediately it was beshert. That by the end of the night, as Shmuley says, I was dancing around with the Torah, jumping up on tables, had my kippah on, and then he told me that if I dropped that Torah I was swinging around, he'd have to fast for 40 days. I never fumbled in college football, but I handed off right away. I left Shmuley and I began coming back to see him. We made a deal as we started talking and finding more in common that we would exchange books. And I gave him books, as he said, about Frederick Douglass, books by Alex Haley, books by James Baldwin, and he gave me books by Maimonides, about Hillel. He gave me books by Elie Wiesel. And both of us found our imaginations so stimulated by the most provocative writings we had ever discovered. Both of us began to just enjoy and saturate ourselves in the other person's culture, and we discovered a deeper love not only for each other, but a deeper love and appreciation for ourselves. I started going back for Friday night dinners, Shabbat at Shmuley's, and we started actually inviting people to come with me. I had Jewish friends of mine that never even lit a Shabbat candle. They're like, you're going to a Chabad house? Take me with you. I got to see this. I had black friends of mine, Christian, Catholic friends of mine, Muslim friends of mine, even a Mormon friend of mine, all coming to be at the Oxford L'Chaim/L'Chaim Society. By the end of our first year, it was amazing. The society grew and grew and grew. It became the hippest place to hang out on Friday nights as people began to discuss topics that were not surface or even secondary to our purpose and our being, but at the core of what your humanity is, what your mission in life is, what your calling is. Shmuley taught me that Judaism is not an insular religion. It's not just about Jews. And neither is it about converting other people. That Judaism is about teaching the world about godliness and goodliness, answering the calling to be a light unto nations. At the end of that year, Shmuley said to me, Cory, I have to tell you, Judaism really is about this goodness, about the 7 Noachide laws. I've not met a man that evidences them as much as you. You must become the president of the Oxford L'Chaim Society. And I said, you want me to be the president of a Chabad house? He says, yes. I go, Shmuley, I've known since I met you that you were crazy. Now I see you are Meshuggah. We argued and wrestled about it, and I eventually agreed to be the head of a Chabad house with a co-president that was Jewish, and we just took off. Got everyone. The speakers we started getting were bigger and bigger. We got Mikhail Gorbachev to agree to come speak. We had fearsome debates in the Oxford Union, a phenomenal experience for me. This experience planted a seed in my heart that really changed my life. I began to understand that so many of us preach our values in words, but we fail to live them as courageously as we should. I went back to Yale and had a larger experience and a larger sense of what my community was about. Indeed, in those difficult times in New York, I've already mentioned, it was the mayor then, Dinkins, that went to the great Rebbe and said, Rebbe, we've got to find a way to get our two communities together. And the Rebbe said, no, you're wrong. And the mayor said, what are you talking about? The Rebbe said, we've got to find a way to bring our one community together. I went to Yale and had a phenomenal Went to Yale and had a phenomenal experience, and eventually met another rabbi, Rabbi Hecht, and we formed a Yale High Society. It started with 5 guys around a Shabbat table, and Rabbi Hecht's first name is Shmuley, so I fulfilled the Chinese blessing, may you live to know 2 Shmuleys. And our 5 guys around a Shabbat table, now we own a major building in Yale and have the same kind of society. I went to Newark and began my professional career. And every step of the way, I saw the more I could expand my idea of community, the more I could bring people to understand that we all share a common stake in whatever happens, the more successful I seemed to be. Now I'm mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and we have the #1 city in America for violent crime reduction, 40% down on murders, 40% down on shootings. But I tell you this has happened because we brought everyone together. We connected with grassroots organizations and philanthropic organizations, individuals like Andy Tisch, individuals in churches and mosques, all pulling together to say we can transform our community and the reality in America if we begin to recognize the value, even the necessity of bonding with my brother. This was a lesson I learned early in my political career when I was just a city councilman, when one of the worst violent incidents during the time I was a councilman broke out in the northern part of my ward. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get the mayor to cooperate with what I wanted to do. So after the encouragement of a phenomenal African-American woman tenant leader, I just went out to that project, pitched a tent, and declared that I was going to have a hunger strike until something changed. I remember setting up this tent and just sitting there, and after the press came out, I said, this is the United States of America. How could people live in terror, in fear, in our own community? We stand for something different than this. I sat in the tent in a long night, but the next day and the next 10 days, I watched transformative things happen. People coming from all over the region. Newark residents proud of their city, standing strong from all over the community to stand with me. Churches and gospel groups coming out to sing praises to the Lord. Hospitals coming out to do screenings for children. Businesses coming out, donating computers to the learning center there. Everyone, suburban towns, a mayor came down with his police officer. There was even business people in New York, saw what was going over. One guy sent 500 pizzas because so many people were showing up just to feed everyone, which really ticked me off because I was on a hunger strike. Every single day we prayed. Every single day we prayed. By the 10th day, it was clear we could declare a victory. The mayor came out and made pledges to the community. And on that last day we prayed, I felt the fulfillment of the vision that I began to birth in Oxford. I looked around and it had started with 4 people praying, but now I held hands with 250 people. There were imams there and Catholic priests, and there were Italians and Jews and all different types of people holding hands. Of course, there were a few rabbis there, and as everybody held their hands to pray, I heard so many different faiths, so many different languages, so many different exaltations of the divine, and I began to hear voices. Indeed, I was tired and hungry, but I heard the old African saying that says, when spider webs unite, they could tie up a lion. I heard the great Israeli prime minister who said, whenever Jews together are strong, but Jews with other people are invincible. Heard the Christian saying that says, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name, he is in the midst. And I heard those 3 Latin utterances at the core of what we claim to be as Americans. E pluribus unum. We just finished the high holidays. And there's a prayer that is said more than any other prayer during the high holidays. In Hebrew, it's ki beiti beit tefillin lochem ahomim. May the prayers of my house be the prayers of many nations. Isn't it this that we seek? To come together with one voice. As the Black National Anthem says, lift every voice and sing. Sing to justice. Sing to unity. Sing and exalt the divine. Shmuley gave me the privilege of taking me on a trip to Israel.